This happened a couple of days ago, and I thought you guys would enjoy it. As a bit of backstory, I play the electric guitar. I take lessons from a teacher that is absolutely the best in the area at what he does. He's been doing it for about 30 years now, so he's really, really good. Understandably, he's also really, really booked up. When COVID hit and everyone started doing online classes for school, he lost a bunch of students because they'd typically go to his class after school, and since they weren't in school or doing extracurricular activities, their parents, I guess, decided to yank them from guitar lessons too. One of the things that makes my teacher awesome is that he tends to give scheduling priority to his older students, like me, 41, because they don't give him the headache of having to manage every little thing between this and that thing for school. It kind of sucks for parents. But he's had enough of the headaches of rearranging everyone's life because little Johnny has to play his leading role of being a rock in the school play. Now, this matters because now that kids are starting to go back into the classrooms where I live, parents are blowing up his phone trying to schedule their little darlings back into lessons, while us older folks have been dutifully attending or doing online lessons and paying the whole time. So if you've been doing that all this time and you've got the 3:30 slot and you like it, that's where you stay. This matters because of Guitar Karen. Guitar Karen's son used to take lessons, but she pulled him out for the last 9 months or so. School classes are starting up, and Guitar Karen wants as little to do with her kid as possible. So she has apparently enrolled him in every possible after-school activity that exists. I know this because my teacher rolls his eyes as our lesson is about to begin because his phone is pinging like crazy. I thought it might be an emergency or something, so when he returned to the room, I said, "Your phone has been going crazy." He normally turns it off during our session. And he just mutters something and turns it off, talking about how this woman has signed her kid up for track, baseball, art, and now guitar, and in order to ensure he has something to do every single day of the week, he absolutely must have this 4 slot. You can imagine where this is going. Guess whose slot that is? Mine. I'm super flexible with regard to the days of the week, just not the time of day, because I work until then. I told him as much, but he's like, "No, I'm not moving you. Don't worry." He turns off his phone and we continue on our lesson. Within like 5 minutes, his computer is going ping, ting, ting, ping, 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 ping. And he's like, "Holy cow," and shuts the lid. Blissful silence for the remainder of our lesson until he opens the classroom door and there stands Guitar Karen, a kind of heavyset woman with her lips pursed like she's going to give you a kiss and her brow looking like it has permanently stuck itself in the scowl position and a Mama Bear t-shirt on. I kid you not. She yells at me. Now, I've never seen this lady in my life, but she's got no mask on, so my instinctive reaction is to social distance right away from her. But she just Godzilla stomps her way in, knocking over a music stand and sending papers everywhere. She turns and shouts at the teacher, "Why won't you give my son this time's spot? He needs it. You need to reschedule your other students and stop singling me out because my son has other activities." The poor guy can't get a word in edgewise. She's standing in the doorway, so I can't leave. She looks me up and down. Me, who is very much t-shirt and jeans kind of lady and is wearing a shirt that says, "I like heavy metal, coffee, cats, and maybe 3 people." And it's like, "I bet you don't even have a job. You're probably some washed out college dropout. Why'd you pick this time slot anyway? Is it because you knew someone like me might need it? You need to give it to my son." I also can't say a word because this woman just won't shut up. Now, let me reiterate that my teacher is the chillest guy on the planet. But he nearly died last year from sepsis on top of the whole COVID thing. So he's really understandably pissed when someone gets in your face, is stabbing your chest with their long-nailed finger, and spraying insults without a mask on. He gets between me and her and says, "You need to back up or get out." They take their confrontation out into the hallway. He tells me to go ahead and leave and he'll handle her. I hear him tell this lady, "Listen, she's been with me for years and I better never hear you insult her or any of my other students ever again. Your behavior is disgusting and you need to leave the premises now before I call security." We don't have security in the building, but she doesn't need to know that. He was so fired up, I think he would have landed her flat on the ground in that moment. She turns completely meek and is like, "What about lessons for my son?" And at this point, the teacher was like, "Absolutely not." And she's like, "But he needs this." And the teacher said, "Not my problem," and acted as if he were dialing security on his phone. She scuttled out of there as I was leaving the parking lot. I wanted to give my teacher the biggest high five. He later told me he didn't hear from her since then, but he thinks this isn't the last encounter. I imagine she's the type of person that will come down there every weekday at that time to berate whichever poor student has that spot because her son obviously needs it. Back in the early 2010s, I started working for a big internet-based company in the UK. The company was opening a new office with a new subdivision in London. When I started, there were 2 team leaders and the office manager. The two teams were the content team and the SEO, search engine optimization, team. I was recruited to be the development team lead, that is, web development. When I was interviewed for the job, both the office manager and SEO team lead were carrying out the interview. As you do in interviews, when they asked if this or that could be done, I would respond, yes, of course, or, you would get a better result doing X, Y, or Z. So I got offered the job, and for the first year, there was so much going on. As well as building a team, I also had a portfolio of websites that needed to be redeveloped and redesigned. It was at this point that some red flags started to pop up. I would have the SEO team lead, we will call him Andy, coming to me and telling me that I needed to do things the way he wanted. I would always push back and say no and give a reason why I was doing things the way I was. Andy would get irate and would complain to the office manager about me. When the office manager would ask me about it, I would explain what had happened and why I'd said no, and the office manager would leave it there, because at the end of the day, I was the one with the experience in web development, not Andy. This happened a few times over the first year, and I then realized that the reason that Andy was getting so irate was because he thought that I would be a yes man to him. Sorry, buddy, that is not who I am. So now that we have the backstory, let's get into what led to the revenge. Me and the team had been working hard to get 2 of the new websites completed, and I was due to show them off to the board before they went live. This company's head office was in another part of the country, and I had to leave the office in London at about lunchtime. So I arrived to the hotel that is across the road from the head office about Fortman jump on my laptop to start going through the sites to run some tests. I was testing functionality, making sure the look and feel were correct, things like that. Then it happened. We found a major bug that caused a major issue with the functionality of the website. So it is at this point that I'm going to introduce the star of our story, Johnny. Not real name, but attacked all the same. Who was my senior developer? Me and Johnny working through the night, me in the hotel room and him in the London office. We finally fixed the bug about 7 a.m. the following day. My meeting with the board was at 10 a.m. So after getting showered, feed, and over to the office, I started my day with 0 hours sleep. I go into the meeting and the first thing that is said is the CEO asking if I was okay. I had met him a few times and he was a really nice guy. I explained that we had found an issue with the sites yesterday and me and Johnny had worked through the night to fix it before the meeting. Long story short, everyone was really impressed and loved the new sites. At the end of the meeting, the CEO pulled me aside and thanked me for everything and then told me to go home and get some sleep. It was about a 3-hour train ride to London and then another hour home. I thanked him and went on my way. So, after taking my team out for a well-deserved lunch to say thank you, the office manager then organized a night out for the whole office to celebrate on the following Friday. We started off at a fancy bar. Not my sort of thing. I am a man of cheap tastes. And then everyone moves on to a small club. I go to the club for a bit, but then leave quite early in the night and I need to get a train home. I say my byes and then head home. I come into the office on the Monday and there is something going on. I speak with Emma, not real name, the content team's lead. She does not know what is going on, but there are people from head office, R and others. Then a few minutes later, all the team leaders are called into a meeting. We are all squished in one of the small meeting rooms. There is office manager, 2 members of the ER team from head office, and the 3 team leaders, including myself. So, to explain that there's been a complaint made against Johnny, a member of the SEO team, we will call him Mark, had called Andy on the Friday saying that Johnny had been making racist comments while everyone was out at the club. Both myself and Emma were taken aback. This was not like Johnny. On a side note, I felt that I need to explain the races of people involved. This is just for context and not an attack on anyone involved. Johnny, Emma, and I are white British. Andy is African, born in Britain, I believe. And Mark is Indian, once again, I believe. So the whole day was spent with her doing interviews with the other people that were there that night, and we then all reconvened towards the end of the day. The result of the interviews were that no one had heard anything like what Mark was saying. So it was Mark's word against Johnny's. This was not acceptable for Andy. He wanted Johnny fired and cried, we could not have someone like that in the office. So both Emma and I looked at each other, and though that it was strange that he was so instant on firing Johnny with no evidence, both the office manager and he agreed, and Johnny was let off with a warning, and to be aware in the future of how things he says that could be misinterpreted. Life went back to normal in the office. That is, until about 2 months later. The story of what had happened had gone around the office, about 12 people. Then one afternoon, I was pulled aside by one of the guys on the content team, and he said that he had overheard Andy and Mark talking and thought I should know. We went into one of the meeting rooms, and he laid everything out. What I heard made my blood boil, and I think had I been in a cartoon scene would have been erupting from my ears. He told me that the racism complaint was faked and a plan that Andy had to attack my team because I would not bend to his demands. Him and Mark on a call outside the club. Andy was not there that night, and that is when he heard what they were doing. It later came out that their plan was to make the complaint against Johnny and get him fired, which would then lead on to Andy complaining that I was not fit to run a team if I let that sort of this happen under my leadership. My first question was why he didn't bring this up with her in the interviews. He said that he did, but it was his word against both Andy and Mark. I thanked him for this and went on with what I was doing. I was pissed. There was no way that I was going to let this slide, but I knew that if I was going to go after them, I needed to have everything in place beforehand. I didn't tell Johnny what I'd been told and asked the guy that told me to keep it to himself for now. I didn't want Johnny to get pissed off and do something that would get him fired or worse, affect any revenge I could dish out. So I watched everything the CO team did and didn't do. Then it happened. It was like angels had descended from heaven to deliver me the winning lottery ticket. The building we were in was a 3-story building with a main stairwell with a door on each floor to the offices. The stair will also lead to a door out to the street. At the time, I was a casual smoker and used it to get a break from the screen and clear my head if something I was working on was not going well. So I walk out of the door to the office and to the stairwell, and who is there? Mark, of all people. He is on the phone and he goes white as a sheet when he sees me. Now he is mid-sentence with the person on the other end of the phone, and as I am walking past, he is forced to carry on the conversation. I overhear, and from what he is saying, I can tell that he is talking to a school or something like that. The conversation sounding like he was looking for information about applying and about a visa. I thought that was a strange call to be having, and something was fishy about it. I had my suspicions as to what was going on, but nothing concrete at this time. A few days later, I was heading back up to the head office, and by that time we had a new office manager who lived near the head office, so was based there most of the time. When I got there, I dropped my things off at the hotel and headed over to the office. I went to his desk and asked to have a quick chat. I explained to him what I had overheard Mark talking about on the phone and said that maybe the company might like to look at his visa status. So a week went by and nothing seemed to happen. Then, bam, he stopped showing up to the office. A few days later, I got told what had happened from one of the other CO team members. Mark had been fired with immediate effect for no longer having the correct visa to work in the UK. The company did not want to get involved in sponsoring a new visa for him. I don't know why. I started asking questions around the office, random chit-chat, and I found out that Mark is from Dubai and he was here on his wife's student visa. I don't know how that works, but it was all above board. I also found out that his wife's course had finished and that left them with a small window of time to get a new visa. That is when it all clicked. Now there are some doggy people in London and everywhere else, and they would set up these fake collages that would sign people up to get visas to live and work into UK. At some point before or after this, saw a program on this, and normally these were set up in tiny offices that you couldn't swing a cat in, let alone be a collage. They were used as postal addressed for the collage, and they would charge a course fee to be enrolled and thus be able to apply for a student visa. So what Mark was trying to do is to get enrolled in one of these collages so that he could stay in the UK and carry on working. I found out a few weeks later that Mark and his wife did have to leave the UK and go back to Dubai because he didn't have any money coming in to pay for his new collage course. Bye, Mark. When I found out that Mark had been let go, I pulled Johnny aside and filled him in on everything. He could not believe it and was stunned that they would try and do that. I apologized to him as it was my fault that he had been targeted by them in a way to get at me. He would not accept it and said that I had gone above and beyond in defending him. Following on from this, I made it quite clear to Andy that I know what he and Mark had done and I would not be forgetting it, and I would not be forgetting it and to watch his back. I made sure we were not in earshot of anyone else. About 2 months later, Andy handed in his notice and left the company, never to be seen or heard from again. I have told this story to some people over the years, and I have been asked so many times if I feel guilty for what I did. I always respond the same way. I feel guilty that Johnny was wrongfully accused and targeted. I don't feel guilty about what I did to Mark. You don't mess with my friends, family, or team. Context. I'm French, and I live in Paris. So I was supposed to meet a friend after work for a drink that day, but as usual, she was late, like very, very late, and I ended up with an hour to kill. No problem. I was near the Haussmann Boulevard, so I went straight to the Galeries Lafayette's to browse around all the things I can't afford. I usually avoid that place because it's crowded with tourists and not very cozy, but there's several floors of stuff to look at, so perfect to kill time. So here I am, walking around, browsing. Oh, one thing you need to know. I had an important meeting at work that day, so I was still wearing a black suit with a red tie. Anyway, I was looking at some shirts and heard a deep man's voice speaking English very fast with a really thick accent. It took me some time to notice that he was talking to me. I turned around and saw this very big fellow, still speaking very fast, looking at me. I tried my best, but I swear, despite all my efforts, I had no idea what he was saying. I'm not very good with English, but I can usually understand people from all over the world. Not this guy. I could barely catch one or two words like size and shirt, but that's all. The mix between the accent and the way too fast pace was very difficult for me. He was talking so fast that I had to wait maybe a minute to be able to answer. Between two breaths of the big guys, I managed to say, "Sorry, I don't speak English." Obviously, it was not something I should have told him. He started to speak even louder. His face turned red and his arms were flying around all over the place. I started to panic a little, but understood that the big guy was asking me for help with the shopping and was not pleased by my performance. I managed to snag another spot between two sentences, just enough to say, "Sorry, I don't work here, sir." Another mistake? He started to speak even louder and faster. I wasn't sure it was possible, but I was wrong, and I had no doubt anymore. This dude was angry at me, like very, very angry. Finally, an actual employee came to my rescue, wearing, as you can guess, a suit and tie. But before he could say anything, the big fellow started to yell at him while pointing a finger at me. The poor employee looked at me like, "What is happening here?" and told me in French.
"What does he want? I can't understand him."
Surprisingly, hearing people speak in French made the big fellow even more angry. We tried to explain the situation, but all we got in return was a very long gibberish in the word manager. At this point, a woman comes to us with two teenagers by her side, and for 1 second I'd hoped that she could calm down the big fellow or help us communicate. My hope crashed down when the lady started to speak with the same terribly thick accent and as fast as the big fellow. Probably the rest of the family, I thought. So here we are, two people screaming in English pointing fingers, waving arms, calling for a non-existent manager, and throwing a surprisingly big amount of bad words in between. I was about to leave but felt sorry for the poor employee. He was looking around for more help, but nobody came to the rescue. We tried everything, our best English, even Google Translate with our phone, but the big dude was not interested in what we had to say. It became a little bit funny when we started to comment on the situation in French. I told the employee, "Do you get anything of this?" "Nope, but I guess you did a terrible job here, mate. Glad you don't actually work here." Look at his face. It's so red. Man, I hope he's not going to have a heart attack. It made us laugh a little. Terrible mistake again. Big dude doesn't like laughing. After a few minutes of this very awkward situation, security came. The big man kept on screaming and gesturing with his hands too much. The security asked us, "Do you know this man?" No. The security escorted the family out and told them that next time they'd get into trouble for harassing people like this. Well, I'm back with another story about the entitled kid who tried to steal our Nerf bullets and wanted to ride our electric scooters in return. Cast. Me, my 10-year-old younger brother. Entitled kid, entitled mom. Entitled kid's nice sister. A friend of the entitled kid who was a nice person. A friend of mine, and finally a friend of my brother's. This story is a bit long, so sorry for the read. So after my last post, we have not seen that entitled kid for a while. All went well, and we let her sister ride our scooter some, since her sister is nice. The next day after that entitled kid comes back. Me and my brother just had our scooters to the side, talking and chilling with our friends. The entitled kid comes over and conversation goes as follows. Entitled kid, "Can I ride your scooter since you let my sister ride it?" Me, "No, because of the stuff you tried to do last time." What did I do? You know what you did. She walks off to talk with her friend who bought some slime today. I don't know what happened before I got there, but then I saw the entitled kid running off. Entitled kid's friend, "Give me back my slime." Entitled kid, "No, because I am playing with it." I did not let you. Entitled kid's friend manages to grab a small plastic disc from the entitled kid. Bad choice. "Give me it back," her friend. "Then give me my slime." Me, yeah. Give her back her slime. Entitled kid, "Shut up and get away from me." She tells me to back away, but she gets closer. Entitled kid, I said back away. Me, "You're the one coming to me." She then proceeded to flick me in the head. Me, "If you lay your hands on me again, I will beat you." So the entitled kid runs away again. Go figure. With the slime. Me to the nice friend. "Throw her disc in the trash." Entitled kid, "No, don't." She won't, but you give her slime back. No. The entitled kid was so mad she, being the brat she is, throws the slime in the trash. Her friend was pissed. Her friend tells her, "Get it out, you brat." No. The friend then proceeds to throw the disc in the trash, and the entitled kid, being the idiot she is, puts her hand in the trash to get it. So her friend went to the playground and started to call her mom while she was doing that. Me and my brother started to go home. We must check and go home a certain time every day. Before we left, the entitled parent shouts on the phone, "Apologize to my angel right now for bullying her." We went home and ignored her. When we came back, the entitled kid's sister walked up to us. The following conversation comes. The sister, "Why are you bullying my sister?" Me and my brother decide to tell our side of the story. The sister walks to the entitled kid and tells her to stop, and me and my brother thought this was the end. Boy, we were wrong. The next day comes, and my brother decides to bring his hoverboard this time, that he rarely lets anybody ride. The only people he lets ride it are his close friends. When we get there, the entitled kid is there again. My brother parks his hoverboard, and the girl walks up to him. Entitled kid, "Can I ride your hoverboard?" My brother, "No. What did I do?" Me, let me think. "Oh yeah, I know. You hit my brother. You hit me. You tried to steal our scooters. Stop spreading those rumors about me." My brother's friend comes over and asks me and my brother if we want to play tennis. We say yes, and the entitled kid follows us. She keeps shouting, "Let me ride it," and my brother keeps saying no. We start to play tennis, and she plays. I sit on the net, not near her at all, and she keeps telling me to back off. Eventually, she has the idea to flick me multiple times. I was livid. I punched her square in the chest, and she got mad and flicked me again. I was done and tried to leave the tennis court with my friend, and the entitled kid blocks us. Entitled kid, "Apologize now?" Me, "No." I said, "Apologize. For the second time, no, you have flicked me and punched me and my brother multiple times." "Well, your friend needs to apologize for lying that his mom was 55 feet tall." My friend, it was a joke. She proceeded to ram my scooter into a wall multiple times before I punched her again. She left the park and has not been there since. Her sister still talks to us, and the entitled parent has said nothing, so that's good. This one also takes place when I was around 16. This logic surrounding this one always was a mystery because, quite frankly, I see myself as a regular dude, but cast. Me, Cross, the lovely nickname that I use. Zoe, best friend from high school. Corey, another best friend from high school. Mark, the entitled kid, and Karen, the entitled mother. There's also Corey's mom. So this occurred around my summer break. I was just chilling one day on the couch when Corey, a good pal of mine from high school, came over. What we did that day wasn't important, but the main thing is that before he left, he asked me if I could sleep over at his place for a few days, along with Zoe, my stepdad. Just dad, since, close as real father and son, said that's perfectly fine, just as long as I don't cause any trouble. Just a parent watching out for his teenager. My mom was a little reluctant at first, as she didn't want her precious baby to be away from mommy, but my dad just told her that I'm not a kid, and that he trusts Corey's parents. My parents are good friends with Corey since I've known the guy since I was 10. My mom relented in the end. My mother is a different can of worms that might be opened at a later time. The next morning, Corey's mom picked me up from my house along with Zoe. An unfamiliar face is Mark, who's Corey's cousin and the entitled kid of this story. We went to Corey's place and then did a bunch of regular teenager stuff. Now, I don't know if it was the so obvious signs poking out, but I got the distinct impression that Mark didn't like me. For example, we were at a convenience store buying a bunch of snacks and whatnot. I offered to pay for everything. It was $15 total. Mark scoffed and said that he could easily pay for all of that and that I didn't have to show off how rich I was, which earned him shut up from Corey. He also tried showing off, like he tried to get us to call him Iron Man. You can cringe, because I have a cool nickname, and it's only fair that he also has one. The prime example is when we were coming home from the movies. It was nighttime, and we ran into a bit of traffic. It got a bit long, so Zoe ended up falling asleep on my shoulder. I didn't really care since she was tired, and it's not really something I considered a romantic gesture. I at one point noticed that Mark, however, who was sitting at the front, was glaring at me. He turned away the minute I saw him. Fast forward to everyone preparing for bed, I went downstairs to get a glass of milk. Don't judge me, I like milk. As I was doing that, I felt someone tap me on the shoulder. Mark, hey, we need to talk. Me, oh, sure, what's up? Mark, don't think I didn't notice what you're trying to do. Me, Mark, don't play dumb. I know you're trying to show off in front of Zoe so that she doesn't date me. Me, if I was drinking my milk, I probably would have spat it out. Come again. Mark, you heard me. Stay away from her. I'm the only one she needs, and I will not let you have her. Me, okay, 1, she's not an object, and 2, she's not yours. Mark, I didn't say she was me. That was heavily implied. Mark, whatever. Just stay away from her if you know what's good for you. Me, laughing, and I then patted him on the head. Sure, pal, whatever you say. He huffed and then went upstairs. I just rolled my eyes and finished off my milk. When I went up to Corey's room, he asked me this. Corey, hey, Cross. I saw my cousin come up the stairs earlier. He seemed pissed when he went in the guest room. Something happened. Me, oh, nothing. Just regular teenage crushes, I guess. He looked at me confused, and I told him what happened downstairs. He rolled his eyes and said he'll talk to Mark about it. The next morning, we're having breakfast. Zoe's the last one to show up. Mark pulls up the chair next to him. and offers her to sit there. She does, and he gives me a smug look. I just ignored him and went about eating my breakfast. Now, you'd think the fact that I said nothing would give him some sense of satisfaction, because you'd think the silence would make him go something like, "Huh, I beat you." But instead, he stood up and slammed his hands on the table, crying about asking why he can't be cooler than me, and that I'm always trying to make him look lame. I did not see that coming. Corey's mom took Mark to the living room to cool down, while the rest of us were just bemused by this entire situation. But eventually, we just decided we didn't care and went on with our breakfast. Today was the day that Mark's mom was supposed to pick him up. He was going home earlier. Suffice it to say that when she arrived, she did not go quietly. When she arrived and found Mark crying, the following one occurred, entitled, "Mother, what did Corey do this time?" According to Corey, he and a cousin never got along. Corey's mother: "I don't know. He just started getting upset at Cross for no reason. I want to speak to this little brat. Right now." Corey's mom called us into the living room. Are you that Cross brat?" "Me. That's me." "What did you do to my baby?" "Nothing." "Well, he wouldn't just cry for no reason." "That's exactly what he's doing." "No. I want to know what you did right now." "Corey, I think I know what this is about." Corey reiterated everything I told him yesterday to his mom, and she just rolled her eyes. The entitled mother was fuming. Mark tried to interject, but Corey told him to be quiet, and that this could have all been avoided had Mark not been jealous of someone he's known for less than a week. Corey's mother, right? "Nothing happened. It's just your kid being brat like normal." Entitled mother: "No. This little brat made my baby cry. He deserves to be taught some respect." Turns to Zoe. "And you, why won't you date my son? Is he not good enough for you?" Zoe looked perplexed. I was pissed. Corey looked like he was about to take someone down. However, I think we should appreciate the true hero of this story. Corey's mom. "Okay, that's it. Take your brat and get out." Now, how could you'd side with this brat over your own nephew? Shut up. The entitled mother froze in place, like a deer in headlights. Corey's mother: "I am sick of you and your brat. I gave him another chance to stay here, hoping that you improved your miserable parenting and taught him that the world doesn't revolve around him. But it seems nothing has changed because you somehow think it's okay to shout and scream at a bunch of 16-year-olds. Just because your spoiled brat can't accept that a girl who has no obligation to date him is not interested, and that he thinks that a kid who's just trying to enjoy his summer break is trying to be cooler than him. Now get your miserable self out of here, and if you ever come within a 5-mile radius of here again, the police will see you out." Everyone was stunned. Then, after a moment of silence, the entitled mother huffed, grabbed her little brat, who was still crying, and ran out. After that whole thing, we just continued our breakfast. I haven't seen that guy ever since, but if he ever saw me again, I think he'd be pretty pissed. Anyhow, I hope you got some giggles out of this one. Peace. Hi, this is my very first post here, and this just happened about within an hour and a half ago. I was at a locally owned pizzeria creamery in my county that's run by a married couple that are old family friends of mine that I'll call Mr. and Mrs. Cliff. Anyway, I finished eating. So while my dad and younger siblings were finishing up theirs, I decided to help clean up the table by picking up all the garbage, used plates, and pizza pan. The layout for this restaurant is that when you first walk in, you go straight and see the counter where you order pickup with the kitchen right behind it. The pay and return area garbage can is right next to the left of the counter where I was going to and turning around to go back to my table when I noticed a woman coming up to the counter. I smiled at the lady and did a little head nod towards her when she said something I couldn't hear. So I stopped and said, "I'm sorry, what is it?" And she goes, "I'm here for a pickup." I guess she saw me cleaning and putting the pizza pan up and thought I worked there. So while still smiling, I went to say, I can go get Mr. Clo. However, before I could finish my sentence, she goes, "Oh, you don't work here, do you?" I chuckled a little bit and said, "No, ma'am, I don't, but I can go get Mr. Cliff in the kitchen to check if your pickup is ready." As I was saying that, she was saying how sorry she was when Mr. Cliff returned from the kitchen without me having to get him. As she was getting her food, she apologized one more time while laughing and complimented my curly hair. I just said, "It's all right, and thank you very much." I'm actually surprised it isn't frizzing up with the rain today. She left while saying, "Have a good night." And I went to see my family finish with everything and my little brother dragging our dad to play a game of pool before leaving. After that, we said bye and good night to Mr. and Mrs. Cliff and went home. I'm so happy to have my first. I don't work her lady story and for it to be a nice, wholesome one, too.